is up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Real Paint Talks of PSC. I'm your host, Daniel San Martin, owner-operator of Top Line Painting and Spray Coatings from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. What I'm talking about today is something that crosses my mind quite a bit. Obviously being in the industry and being a tradesman, working with other trades, and now, of course, with social media, seeing what other people do, contractors, tradesmen, and how they schedule things out. I just want to remind people that there is something in the painting industry I always refer to as paint ready, whether it's, repaints, new home construction, commercial, whatever it might be, whatever project you're doing, there is that element of having it paint ready for your painter. And I know some might be like, the painter needs it. It's like, well, no. The reference I always use when I go into a job, especially new home construction, if I walk into a job and it's a mess and it's not clean and ready for us, but they want us to start prepping and they want us to start going, I always reference, hey, you wouldn't let your electrician come in here and wire this house with live power, or however it works, in a puddle of water. You wouldn't have them do that. That'd be dangerous. And it's the same thing with us with dust, dirt, garbage, stuff not ready. Vacuum the place. It needs to be paint ready. Whether you're going to do a repaint, if you tell people, hey, move your furniture aside, pictures off the wall, unless you're charging to do that. Little side note, I never really charge to do that. I kind of always have people handle their own valuables and possessions. If they need a little help moving furniture here or there, scooching it over into the middle of the room, we'll help with that and we'll cover it up. But there still is the paint ready. I don't like to be cleaning up dog hair, pubic hair, dust bunnies, all in somebody's house when I go in to repaint it. So there is that aspect of paint ready. And it's something I constantly remind people because it's going to affect the way you make money. And what I mean by that is that if you have to go into a job and say it's going to take you a week and you've added 2 to 3 days of, say, cleaning, unforeseen sanding, repairs to be fixed, or sometimes, even here's one, this isn't kind of really the same, but doing scheduling for a supervisor between you and the other trades with the other trades, that one always gets me. That kind of, sort of, has to do with the paint ready aspect of it. But these are all things that could really, really lose you money. So I always remind people, paint ready, and the reason I say that too is because the more I see things on social media, the more I see how things are done, people are doing their jobs and stuff like that, I'm starting to see painters have tools that might help them for one thing, but help them more to keep them moving forward to get the job done. And what that does, guys, is like it doesn't hold that other trade accountable. And I know what most people are going to say, especially, for new home construction, because, you're not going to hold your homeowner accountable, but you know what I mean? In new home construction, it becomes a big deal because you need to hold the other trades accountable. If your supervisor, your GC, or somebody else, whoever it is that's calling the shots, isn't going to say, man, this is shit, this needs to be fixed, or they can't listen to you when you say, hey, this isn't good enough, I don't know where you're going with the caliber here, but we kind of need it to be here if you want it to look like this, because this is kind of what we're charging you for. If you want it to look like not so nice, then, we don't have to charge you that, but it's like everything goes down in quality. So you have to be able to say that, to hold those other trades accountable, to hold the last guy accountable. You're only as good as a painter as what you get for a canvas. And I tell that to people all the time, like, we don't build them, we paint them, so it's like, we got to hold the other trades accountable. And what I was going to say is, I know a lot of guys are probably thinking, well, I charge for it, I get paid for it. Okay, cool. So you're not just a painter, you're sort of a handyman now as well. You might as well put that in your name. Well, for us with new home construction, mostly we don't do that. If it's repaints, or if it's something like on the side that's, a friend or something, some other sort of contract where it's like, hey, can you do this? Okay, then maybe you throw it in there. It's not, it's worth your time. But I think the reason I always push the paint ready is more for the accountability of the other guys. Because even if you come in as a painter and you fix it and you get it right and you get it nice, that guy's going somewhere else and doing that kind of stuff somewhere else. And that trade on over there might not be as caring, and all that shit slides and the homeowner gets garbage. So paint ready is a big deal, because what I've seen guys do now is like, oh, we'll just sand that. Oh, we'll fill that. Oh, we'll do this. Oh, we'll do that. And that's great. You can make some extra money doing it. But for me, I make more money concentrating on just focusing on painting and getting the job done than having to fix this and that. And some people might say, well, how can that be? Because you're getting paid for two things now. Well, when you start becoming this guy that's I'll fix this, I'll fix that, it starts to turn, like I said, a 5-day job into a 6-7 day job. And if you have multiple jobs on the go, do you really want to take on this extra work, possibly hire another person, do this or that? Really, when it's like our main focus is painting, you know? And why shouldn't it be? I mean, somebody was already there. There was already a job that had to be done by them. And that can save a lot of time in the long run. And that's really what it's all about, because like I said, it's about making money, and it comes down to having certain processes already done to make way for the next guy. Now, when it's exterior restoration, I've been seeing a lot of stuff online where that's part of their job. You can tell that's entailed in the painter's job. Okay, the painter's going to fix it. Here where I am, if I was working with a client, then maybe I would do some of that stuff. If it was a builder, it's like, hey man, that's rotting. Like, say if it's a builder doing a renovation or a GC, hey, that's rotting. I'm gonna get our carpenter to replace that. Okay, cool. Oh, there's some patchwork though. Can you patch it? All right, fine. You work that all out in the detail. But if you go there and the carpenter, the framer, whoever has fixed this piece on the exterior has messed it all up, you shouldn't have to be the one to be like, okay, well, I'll pull it off. I'll fix it. I'll get it square. I'll get it level. I'll get it whatever it might be. It really shouldn't, be your job. So that's why we have to make sure that we hold the last guy accountable and say like, hey man, he needs to fix this. This isn't right. This isn't done. I can only do as good as what I get. And then that'll really help you build confidence in the way you take on jobs, the way you see them, and of course, how they're scheduled. Because paint ready, like, it's something I push all the time, but I don't see enough people talk about this. I see it a lot too in the kitchen repaint game, or cabinet makers who are kind of coming onto the scene. And I see painters that get stuff and it's like, whoa, look at this. And you're like, Jesus, how do you even have that? Like, that's not ready for you to paint it. Oh, we'll just sand it. We'll do this. We'll fill it. We'll do that. It's like, no. Why? Well, I'm getting paid for it. That doesn't matter, in my opinion, at least. That other guy's going to continue to do that, and there's not always going to be a guy like you that'll fix it. So that's going to get shit. There's going to be quality down the road there that's just garbage. And I'm not okay with that, If it's not good enough to be in my home, then it's not good enough to be in your home. That's also another way we think about it, So the paint ready is something that we need to start talking more about, guys. We need to really be pushing that to people too. If you want to do it all and you want to make the money and you have the time, fine. But I'm talking more about when you're doing multiple jobs, you got things on the go. No, I don't want to reskim all the drywall patches because your drywaller, didn't do a good job. No, I don't want to sand 15 miters out of every frame, throughout the house or whatever it might be. Like, that's not my job. Paint ready. No, I don't want to construction clean it for you. And it's funny because as soon as you start doing that kind of stuff, then it's like it's expected. When they see us walking with a vacuum, they're like, sweet, don't worry about vacuuming, boys. It's like, come on. So it's also comes down to who you're working with, the demographic of jobs that you're doing. If it's repaint, cabinet stuff. So here's one. For the cabinet resprays, kitchen repaint cabinet resprays type deal. I see a lot of guys doing so much cleaning, and then some homeowners are wondering why it's so expensive. Well, who in their right mind for peanuts would want to come and scrub your greasy, nasty ass cabinet? It's gross, so that's one major thing that I don't really like in cabinet refinishing to public demographic, because it's gross. And I don't care how much you charge for it, it's still gross, so I would put that in my price. They say, hey, you can save this. And it's just reverse psychology is really all it is. I'm telling you guys, you've got to read this book, Never Split the Difference. It's like the art of negotiation, bargaining, stuff like that, negotiating. But essentially, you're just telling them like, hey, you can save yourself some bucks if you clean it, you know? And then, yeah, you shave off a little bit, but it's not going to be this substantial amount where you're like, oh my God, I'm like, I can't do this now. It's like, well, hell, you're going to save yourself 2-3 days. Get them to clean it. If you see, oh, it's not, they didn't clean it properly, like, okay, well, they've already started cleaning them, so it's going to be a lot easier for you to do it, you know? If I go into a kitchen and I look on the top of the cabinets and it's literally, you can take a putty knife and scrape the grease off, ugh, disgusting. That's somebody else's house. It's somebody else's nastiness. So that'd be a hard area to push the paint ready. But these are little things where I tell some of my clients, like I said, the dog hair, the pubic hair, the stuff around the toilets, like clean that. Nobody wants to work around that. This isn't paint ready. Your substrate surface, you know, trade stacking is a big one too. When I think of, say, like commercial work or working at night and having all these other trades around, like hopefully guys in commercial are getting some of their own time, but I've worked in a few commercial instances and there's fucking people everywhere and this and that. That's not, to me, that's not paint ready. And maybe we've been spoiled as custom home painters. I don't know, possibly, you know, but everything has a system. And when that system is run smoothly, you can knock stuff out of the park, everyone, and get really good results, quality wise too, whatever the caliber might be. If there's a goal that needs to be executed, it's always going to go smoother when things are run smoother. Like, of course, you know. So it comes down to shit being ready, and it really goes to every trade. You know, I shouldn't just say painters, but I think for what we're doing more specifically, it's like once paint gets on the wall or we start spraying, it's like, yo, you can't do anything else. This is it now. Like, I don't want to go backwards and like, you know, like, I mean, especially new home construction, I guess it's all the same. If someone else is fucked up, like, you want them to cut a hole in your drywall again? Goddamn, hopefully that shit was ready for them. You know, hopefully they did their job. Hopefully, you know. And I think as a painter, there's a lot of stuff we have to look over and see to make sure it's ready for us, you know. And you never want to tell someone how to do their job, but it's also, you know, you don't want to have to do things twice if you don't have to. And you also don't want to be putting people down, but you also don't want people to be getting away with shit when you have to fix it all up. Because us as the painters, you know how it is. We get the shit end of the stick always. That's why right from the get-go, you're not going to want to be taken advantage of. You're going to want to slightly stand your ground, you know, be polite, be professional, be empathetic, because that matters, you know, show empathy. But at the same time, don't let people walk all over you, you know. You got to stand your ground. You got to know when to say, hey, this isn't for us to do, you know. We used to see it a lot when we do these new home builds, or it'd be like the whole basement, say it's all in cherry or something crazy, and you got to stain it and clear it and all that stuff. Well, sometimes we go along, you start staining a few areas, and before long you notice, like, wow, there's a lot of, you know, scratches in some areas here. Like maybe the finishers forgot this area, because no disrespect to any trade out there, really, unless you really are just a hack, shit happens. Like, let's be real, shit happens. And that's where it gets sticky a little bit, because with new home construction, it's like, do you really want to call that guy back for everything? No, because later, hopefully, he's going to just see it and make the adjustment. Same thing as you. It's like, oh, hey, man, I need this door front resprayed. Okay, cool. I got you. You know, just like it's going to be the same. Hey, man, this isn't really sanded properly. You think you could have a guy come and sand this and let it? Okay, cool. It's done. Boom. You continue staining. You move on. But it's the other end of it when guys are like, well, why don't you have a palm sander, man? I'm like, well, I do have a palm sander. Like, but I'm not going to go buy 5 palm sanders so all of my guys can sand this mess out that is not from us. You know, it's not paint ready, man. Get the shit paint ready. When it's ready, we'll come and we'll do what we have to do. And then it's all gravy from there, you know. When you're working with higher end clients, I find that it can be a little bit it can be nitpicky, and it can also be expected of you. Just like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, what do you mean? What do I mean? You don't know how this works. The good ones, they do, but some of the other ones are a little arrogant. It's like, well, why can't you just fix that quick? What? So, okay, just let me go get my Hawk and trowel and I'll skim this fucking wall for you. And I'm sure a lot of guys right now are like, yeah, do that. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that because I got shit to do over here. This is a big house. You think I don't got stuff to do? Get that ready. We'll work over here. You get that ready. So you got to be able to make those calls and call those shots and be stern a little bit, because paint ready is definitely something you should be thinking about when you're going to work. You know, especially if you're doing new home construction. I know I keep going to that, but I was thinking about it the other day because, and this is the reason why I wanted to get on and talk about it, because I think about it all the time. Like, why should I do that? Why should I do that? Why should I do that? And I started thinking like, oh, that's why the repaint game's a lot better. Yeah, kind of, depending on the client, you know, because when you have somebody who's building a custom home and they're dropping 10, 20 million, they're not really thinking about every little part of it. They know that their builder, whoever is going to cover them, when they see something, okay, it's going to be fixed. But when you have someone who's spending 6,000 to 7,000 of their hard-earned, saved money, they're going to pick that shit apart sometimes. And sometimes it's even worse when it's like, hey, well, why can't you? Oh, hey, well, why can't you? It's like, oh, that's a drywall issue. I can't. Well, why can't you just fix this huge seam here? The screw pop ones are the best. Well, why can't you fix it? Well, because to truly fix this, you have to pull the screw out and replace it. Like, I'm not going to do that. Well, I'll pay you to do it. No, thanks. So that really just comes down to you, and it's subjective to what you like to do. I don't like to do it because then it becomes your problem. I'm not a drywaller. I'm not a carpenter. You know, I'm not a hardwood floor touch-up specialist. Yeah, I can touch, stained wood up pretty fucking good. But when you have a massive scratch across your floor because whatever, and it's like, oh, well, could you just, it's like, no. And then it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I can. I'll be here tomorrow. Make sure this is all moved. You show up, nothing's moved. It's like, yo, man, like what the hell? So that can really get to me, and like I said, you have to be stern. You have to know when to put your foot down. Because like I said, it's not just new home construction, but there's a lot more that goes on and there's more into it, more people involved that can really make your life a pain in the ass. So put your foot down, remind people, hold them accountable, do it in a professional way. I know sometimes you have to be a dick, be like, bro, you think that's good enough? There's no way that's good enough. Come on, man. Oh, picky fucking painter. Well, yeah, because as soon as I put paint on it, if it looks like shit, then they're like, oh, the paint job looks like shit. Look at that. It's like, well, that's not actually from me. That's like this or that, Oh, man. Sometimes we'll do pre-prime casings in houses, It's the factory primer on the casing. And sometimes, depending on the cut of the profile, you can get chattering or you can get like pitting and stuff like that. And nothing cracks me up more than when you do it, you get your lacquer on there, it's smooth as fuck. And then they're like, oh, what's with all these like indents and stuff? Like, you know what I'm talking about? It's like kind of like a texture indentation from like how they ripped it or cut it on the machine, and then they just dip it in primer and you can still, well, what am I supposed to do with that? And if you want me to skim, here's another thing I see a lot of guys doing. And I need to do a video on this because it's extremely important. When I see guys skimming with the red glazing putty, what in the fucking world? Why? Paint ready. Surface needs to be ready. You want to build up your canvas with, if you're spraying, with primer. Not with red, not with Bondo, not with this and that. And you can't just go and fix this stuff with red. So I see guys skimming frames, skimming this, skimming out textures, and it's like, yo, man, if you wanted it to look that good, say if it's like a medium end job and it's pre-prime casing, it's not bare substrate. You put the primer on, your primer, because I still prime it, but some guys don't, and they're wondering why sometimes it looks like shit. Well, it's got primer on there already. Okay, cool. So you fill the holes. You're not even redding it on primer. I see guys that are fucking red and before primer, even on bare substrate sometimes. That stuff's not for that, And here is my point. Because guys go and do things because they're expected by people to hit a certain caliber or have this certain look that isn't really reality to create with just red, but they go and do it. And then people are like, well, I seen that guy. Can't you just skim this? Okay, yeah, sure. Well, this is garbage, but I'll just do it anyways. And the next thing you know, it becomes expected. You see, and that's the problem. And that's why I constantly have to remind all of us that we have to be more responsible with what we're posting and what we're putting online. Because people are seeing that, and it's not just other painters or other trades, it's homeowners, it's DIYers. It's consumers now that are turning around and trying to use this stuff sort of against you. Well, I seen this or I saw that. So it really comes down to the responsibility of us. So I did this job, same thing. Sprayed it all. It was smooth as fucking glass. So smooth. The DAP, mint. The caulking, like everything was so mint. We redded it. We did all this stuff. Oh, well, you can still see this texture. Okay. Your builder didn't tell you that, or you didn't know that. Nobody's seen that. What do you think? The paint's going to fill that in that much, especially spraying vertically? No, sorry. This is kind of what you get. Just look past it. Some guys will red all that. Skim it with red. There's no fucking way I would skim that with red. Even if you paid me a shitload of money, I still wouldn't do that. No, because it's like if my fender on my car gets like dented and crushed, I don't want you to skim it with Bondo. I need a new fender. And am I saying to you, okay, replace all the trim in the house because this isn't good enough? Well, no, of course you can't do that. But when it's installed, when the material shows up, it comes to that accountability. Is that carpenter looking at his substrates and looking at his material and being like, well, this is kind of a shit piece. This is a shit piece. Hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. You should ask someone if this is good enough, blah, 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 blah. I had one job where it was like not even chatter. It was like they went to put it through the machine that probably cuts the profile, but it was like it gradually was stopping. So it left these like thick grooves, like all the way down it. You know what I mean? Almost like the planer was like getting stuck, and you could see it. And in the end, touch up time's like, oh, this one's pretty bad. What do you think we can do about this? Well, I mean, what do you mean we? This is a carpenter thing. This isn't my responsibility now. But when it came down to it, it's going about it in a professional way. This is a client of mine, and I potentially want to, keep in good with them. And you want to be rational, and you want to work things out. And like I said, the empathy, So it also came down to like, oh, maybe we can just fill it. Like, well, like you can try and fill it. And go ahead and try that out, and then sand it, and I'll paint it with a brush. How about that? Because I'm like, I don't have the right tools here at this time to do this properly. Well, I'll see if, his supervisor could sand it. And when I ended up coming back, it was filled and sanded. It wasn't completely gone, but then I brushed it in. Even though it was a spray finish, I brushed it in and everyone was happy. It actually looked pretty good. And that's how we had to fix it. But it all could have been avoided if the person who installed that trim work would have looked over their material. Before you install it, look it over. Take a look at it. If it was crooked as fuck, you're not going to put it on. But because it's like, oh, this has some defects in it, you kind of oversee it, and then it becomes the painter's problem to make it look pristine, which doesn't work sometimes. So that's why holding the guys accountable for what they're doing is very important, because then they're going to think about it different next time, But I found a lot of the times too, some of the trades, they don't end up seeing it in the end like we see it. They never come back and see the finished product. And that's important because they need to be able to see what we're trying to achieve, the overall end result. And then they'll be able to tell how to do the job differently sometimes in the building process, right? Because really when it comes down to it, you're only as good as what you get. So it becomes very important that you have good substrates to work with, because that's going to matter, especially when it comes down to other trades, seeing what you're doing with it after. If it's all mangled and you fix it and you wood filled it and you put that love in, or you reskim the wall, or you did this or that, and then they step back and see it maybe afterwards if they get a chance, and they're like, oh man, look what that guy did. Okay, I don't got to worry. He's got my back. It's like, well, no, dude. I don't want to inset like 50 nails in one frame because you were too lazy to, punch your nails in, or I don't know, turn your compressor up. Like I don't know all the details, but all I know is that punching in nails is not part of my job. Okay, here or there, you want to help out for the overall good of the job, but at the same time, if you're going to every frame and there's 5-6 nails that need to be punched in on every frame, especially in new home construction when you're in bigger houses, like that's a ton of work that shouldn't have to be your job, you know? So that's why sometimes, you know, you have to be careful the types of favors you do for people, well, quote unquote favors, because then it becomes, like I said, expected. And that's especially with the red, you know, I even see carpenters now using that stuff thinking that this is like magic. It's not, you know, and the more you start skimming stuff for people and the more you start making shit look really good, like literally shitty substrates look really good, it'll be expected. And that guy before you's never going to learn his job. And the reason I get so a little flustered with that is because you want your substrate to be good just with primer. You want that canvas to be built up with primer, you know, not have broken corners that you filled. You know, a big one here is when you're taking man doors off, the doors have to have blocks on the bottom of the door. Because if you're moving these doors around and they got no blocks on them, you're tearing corners of the doors off and stuff like that. Like, man, then what? You're going to try and glue it back on, wood fill it. It's never going to have the same strength. It's never going to be what it was, you know, and it's always going to become your problem after every time it needs to be fixed, you know? So it comes down to, once again, this isn't ready. Well, you need blocks on the doors? What do you mean you need blocks on the doors? Well, what do you mean? What do I mean? You move these doors around too many times and bust all the corners off of the bottoms with these man doors, they're fucked. They'll never be the same again. And then we fill it, and the next thing you know, that breaks and it looks like wood filler. It looks even shittier, you know. But if you go and do these things all the time for people, they're never going to learn. And that's not the way to do it. Building up a surface or a corner or something with wood fillers and stuff like that. Like, I can understand if it's really crucial, especially for the exterior restoration guys. I see some guys do some incredible stuff with some of those exterior wood fillers. Cool. I get that. I totally get that. You know, but where it didn't necessarily have to happen, especially with new home construction, it's not acceptable, really. And you don't want that. Like I said, your car, if your car's fender needs to be replaced, it needs to be replaced, you know. We can't just skim it with Bondo over and over and over again and think this is going to be good. But guys are doing it, and it's not good, and it's just creating bad habits that are letting other guys get away with stuff they should be held accountable for. So like I said, y'all, pump the paint ready. Educate your clients. Educate the other trades. Don't act like I know it all, because I'm sure a lot of carpenters know a lot more about wood sanding, I guess, than we would, but I guess not. You know, when I have a substrate that's some exotic type of wood that we got to stain, like I shouldn't have to sand this all down to 300. If it's been sitting for a while, then maybe if we want a really pristine finish, like I said, we look it over, we get rid of pencil marks, drywall dust, stuff like that, any drywall mud on there, watermarks, and whatever you can see. You want to sand that down. You want to get the surface ready. But the problem is that if the schedule is kind of in a place where that substrate has to sit for a while, there's always that time where stuff can get damaged. So it'd be amazing if I had some exotic cherry that I had to stain. Finishers put it together, they sand it, they sand the whole thing down with 300-400, whatever it is, get it right ready. We come in, blow it off, stain it, no problems. The wood is pristine. And that to me is paint ready. When you go into a house to repaint the walls, furniture moved, you drop the poly, it's clean, you tape the baseboards, away you go. You know, you go and do, say, here's actually a big one. And I'm sure some drywallers out there will probably shake their head at this, but when guys are doing popcorn skims, and then they're putting, they're scraping off the popcorn, skimming the ceilings to flat drywall, and that's got to be good. You got to be really good at that. Because if you're not, you're going to see it, and there's not a lot we can do. People are like, oh, the painters can fix it. Like, no, the painters cannot fix it. But like I said, it comes down to that accountability. You have to step up sometimes and push the paint ready. And it's, you know what it's doing? It's also showing a respect to our trade and reminding people, hey, we can't just be like, touch up. Oh, the painter will get that, touch up. Like, that's not good. Because then when do we ever finish? It makes it hard for us. I mean, we could be continuously doing that sometimes too. Because that paint ready comes in all aspects to every part of the job as it goes from start to finish. It's always certain areas that have to be paint ready. I mean, it's just it's what holds everyone accountable. And it really is the best way to achieve the best finish, the most efficient way so you can make the most money. Because remember, like I said, guys, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to making money. So if you want to make money doing other shit, other jobs, fixing other people's work, trying to be quote unquote a little bit, well, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but being that hero who saves the day, oh, I can fix it, I can do it, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, cool. But like I said, that other guy, he's whatever it is. And I'm not trying to dig at the carpenter or the drywaller. These are just two of the trades that we are most affected by, you know? So if these guys are getting away with shit work and no one's saying anything, they're going to continue to get away with it all down the line. And it's going to bring the quality down for everyone, you know? So paint ready, guys. I can't stress that enough. Tell people, tell your owners, your clients, your GCs, contractors, and like I said, working good relationships with the other trades, because that's really what's going to matter the most, to tell you the truth, is building relationships with people, whether it's the trades, whether it's the the GCs, the homeowners, and reminding them that you have a certain way that you like to do things that keeps everything nice and clean and smooth, right? So push that paint ready, guys, and follow it as a rule of your own. Like I said, I can't speak too much for the restoration guys because I know they have to do a lot of work to get some of those substrates back to what's acceptable so they can paint it. So big ups to them, because I see some of the stuff online. I'm just like, damn, that looks like a ton of prep work. But when it comes to simple things that help you make more money and get the job done easier, it needs to be a rule. It needs to be something that people follow and think about and respect when it comes to us as painters, because we need it. So like I said, it all comes down to making money. And if you can't make that quick, easy money, and I don't mean easy in the sense that but I mean like making the job easy, because if a job that's supposed to take 3, 4, 5 days goes to 7, 8 days, that wasn't easy, clean money, especially if you're quoting a certain way. Like I mentioned before, if you're quoting a job a certain way to make a certain thing on a certain amount of time, because maybe you gave a deal, maybe you wanted to be competitive, that's all going to matter when it comes to how well you get the job done. It's like, get out of the way, make sure it's done, make sure it's ready. Oh, I got to wait for this guy. Oh, this wasn't good enough. But then, like I said, be professional, be sympathetic, even though if shit keeps happening over and over and over again, you're constantly waiting for people, you're constantly waiting for things. So sometimes it is easier to just do it yourself. But that really comes down to the business model and the demographic of what you're painting, in my opinion. So be good to each other, guys. That's kind of what I'm saying, the trades before and after you, you as well. I mean, lead by example. If you clean up, other people might see that, it's time to clean up, clean your shit up, get it ready. But if you're going into a job and there's supposed to be certain things that are done and ready for you so you can start, be stern, put your foot down, make sure people know that there is a paint ready to this that really helps us to achieve really, really good quality stuff. And that's what it's about. So much love. Thanks for tuning in. Thought I'd keep this one a little bit of a short one, but like I said, let's be good to each other and always remind ourselves, paint ready. Don't be afraid to tell people that, to let it show, and it'll show, and everyone will see in the longer run that it's a good thing. Everybody needs something to get their job done. We all have a job to do, right? But I'm not trying to say that it's more specific to painting, but in the end, when other people are touching stuff and things go wrong or bad, and then it's already got paint on it, it really just becomes your problem. And that really sucks. There's nothing worse than staining a whole building and not seeing the glue, and then having the glue all showing through that the carpenters probably should have, sanded clean or wiped off, and you possibly missed it, because mistakes do happen, and then it all becomes your problem. So it's, be smart, be paying attention, really. Pay attention. Don't let these guys get away with stuff that they shouldn't be getting away with. You're only as good as what you get. It goes the same for them as well. So it's important. It's important to get that quality. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Much love. And another episode of Real Paint Talks of PSC. Peace out.